The biggest secret about balancing your bike is that you don't need balance to do it. It's not about balancing at all. What's up? My name's Aaron and welcome to the Shred Spot. This is where we break down riding techniques so you can quickly learn it and incorporate it into your own riding. In today's session, we're going to learn how to balance on our bike in place. This technique is called the trackstand and it's useful in a variety of different situations. As an added bonus, some of the skills we're going to practice today are going to lay the foundation for some additional skills in the future that you might not have expected. We're also going to work on a second way of practicing track stands. So if you've had some trouble in the past learning track stands, this second route might be for you. Let's dive into the first way we practice track stands. This is the main way that I teach people how to do it, and all you need is some sort of a movable object. So in the warehouse here, I've got all kinds of different boxes, but you might find a wall or a picnic table bench. All you need is something that's about the height of your front wheel so you can push your wheel into it. Let's quickly talk through some bike setup. Number one, I'm only using my front brake for this technique. Number two, I'm in a relatively light gear. Somewhere between 2 and 4 should do the trick. Number three, I like to keep my pedals as level as possible so I have a nice stable platform to be on while I'm practicing this move. Speaking of pedals, I recommend flat pedals to learn this technique before you move onto your clipless pedals. It's a faster way to build confidence, and there's nothing worse than being clipped into the bike and falling over during a track stand. I would also recommend, if possible, to lock out your suspension. I'm a big fan of removing as many variables as possible as you're learning basics, and then once you've got your mind wrapped around the technique, then you can add them back in. We've got our bike totally set up and we've got something to lean against. Now it's time for me to tell you the secret of balancing your bike. The track stand is not a stationary move. You don't grab both brakes and fight against the bike to stay balanced and upright. In fact, it's the complete opposite of that. Track standing is all about moving your bike underneath you to maintain your balance. Your front wheel moves left to right and your bike moves forward to back, and that's exactly how you can stay balanced forever in one spot. To set up for the first stage of practice, line your bike up parallel to the object that you found and twist your front wheel into that object. I recommend that you point the front wheel away from your forward foot. So I'm right foot forward, meaning that my front wheel will point to the left. Now grab your front brake, level out your pedals, and hop on the bike. You're gonna wanna push on the pedals just a little bit and push all of your weight into that front wheel so that it balances against the wall. You can stay in this position here as long as you want. Keep leaning into that wall with your front wheel. And let's do a quick form check that your shoulders are over the handlebars. Next, I want you to become aware of how much pressure you're putting on the pedals and keep that pressure on. What you're going to do next is slowly ease off the front brake and use your pedal pressure to continue pushing that front wheel into the wall. You can also stay in this phase as long as it takes to get comfortable here. Be focused on how your pedals are pushing the front wheel into that wall, and that's what's giving you balance. If you're having any problems with this phase, one recommendation I'd make is to twist your front wheel even tighter so that front wheel is going directly into the wall. Our next step is going to be slightly rolling away from the wall and then returning to it. The technique to pull your front wheel away from the wall is releasing the pedal pressure that you've been pushing on by doing a slight back pedal. Since you're not using the front brake, a small back pedal combined with a little bit of backward momentum is all it's going to take to pull that front wheel away from the wall. The way I like to create that momentum is by using my body weight. First by putting my shoulders forward and then pulling my hips back. At first you might need to over-exaggerate this movement, but as your skill develops, you'll get more efficient with this. It takes a little bit of timing to get this right, but as you pull your hips back, you'll also backpedal slightly, which should pull your front wheel away from the wall. It doesn't need to be much, just enough for it to come away from the wall. As soon as that happens, push down on the pedals and put your front wheel back. You've just completed the first phase of learning track stands. That little rollback away from the wall is the secret sauce of the technique. So what you want to do now is start practicing that back and forth. Roll back, push on the pedals to go back into the wall, roll back into the wall. Keep continuing to practice that until you get really confident going back and forth, back and forth. Once you're fully confident with that back and forth movement, you can step away from the wall and just use your front brake. Up until now, we've been using the wall as an extra brake and confidence builder, but now we just use that front brake in its place. Feel free to stay close to the wall. Just tap your brakes when you get your front wheel close to it, and you'll quickly realize you don't need that wall anymore. That was the first version of learning the track stand technique. However, a lot of people really struggle with the rollback portion of the technique. So I have a different way to teach it that will help you. If you've had any trouble with that back pedal at all, come check out this version. You'll want to find some sort of slight downhill to practice this next technique. Here in the warehouse, I have this small ramp, but you could learn this on a little driveway, you could learn it on a small hill. It doesn't have to be that steep, just enough that the bike would roll down it if you set it down. We're gonna take our bike and put it on the slope. We're gonna turn our wheel in the opposite direction of our front foot, and we're gonna grab our front brake. Next, put your front foot on the pedal and keep your back foot on the ground. Ease off your front brake and add in some pedal pressure on the front pedal. See how your pedal pressure keeps that wheel in place? Now, with your back foot still on the ground, try rolling back and forth with that front wheel, just testing out your pedal pressure. When you ease off the pedal, the bike rolls backward. When you push on the pedal, it rolls forward. This is the feeling I want you to have when you're doing track stands, moving the bike back and forward like this. Once you get the feel for this back and forth motion, you have two options. Number one, you can hop on the bike and practice this uphill using your pedal pressure to keep you in place. Or number two, you can go back to that wall on flat ground and practice now that you have a better feel for what that rollback should be. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give when I'm teaching riders to do new techniques is to over-exaggerate your movements, and that's for two different reasons. Number one, you see these pro riders doing stuff and it doesn't look like they're trying that hard, but it's because they become more efficient with their movement over time, so they don't have to make those movements as big. But number two, as a rider, what you think you're doing versus what you're actually doing are not always the same thing. And filming yourself on your phone is a great way to realize that. But by over-exaggerating, you're probably just doing enough to get that movement to happen. So the area that people struggle with the most in this particular movement is using their body weight to create that backward momentum to get that rollback to happen. So if you're really struggling with that, really focus in on what your hips are doing to pull your weight backward to get that backward movement happening. And if you don't think it's working for you, maybe try filming yourself and see if your hips are really moving as much as they need to create that momentum. Today, you've conquered the basics of bike balance, and you've also picked up a lot of additional skills that are gonna help you further down the line. You've learned how your body weight can move the bike in different directions. You've learned how to modulate the power of your bike using your brakes and your pedals together. These are all relatively advanced concepts that you picked up easily in today's lesson. As you've no doubt learned, track standing isn't an instant skill that you pick up, but it takes time to develop. So remember that practice makes progress. If this video was helpful for you in unlocking the track stand, consider sharing it with another person that you ride with. And if you want to develop your skills even further, go check out this playlist right here.